I didn't question it when my mother said Christmas wouldn't happen this year. She sounded tired, practical. It's too expensive, she said, like she was explaining the weather. I told her it was fine. I meant it, or at least I meant that I understood. Money had always been tight in a vague, shifting way, tight enough to cancel things, but never clear enough to examine too closely. We ended the call politely, no tension, no disappointment voiced out loud. That was the pattern. Nothing was ever said directly enough to argue with. A few days later, I saw the photos. I wasn't looking for them. They were just there, sliding past on my screen. My sister's account, everyone in the living room, matching pajamas, coordinated, deliberate. Even the dog had a small red sweater, something knitted or bought specifically for the moment. My mother was smiling in a way I hadn't seen in a while. Not tired, not practical, just present. I looked at each picture longer than I needed to. Not searching for myself. I already knew I wasn't there, but trying to understand the version of events that made both things true at once. Christmas was too expensive and also happening. I didn't call, I didn't text, I didn't even close the app right away. I just let the images sit there until they stopped feeling sharp. After that, things went back to normal or close enough to it. A message from my sister a week later, casual in tone, almost efficient. You're still good for mom's rent this month, right? No reference to anything else, no acknowledgement of the photos, no explanation, just the assumption. I stared at the message longer than I had at the pictures. There wasn't anger, not in the way people describe it, no heat. It felt more like something settling into place, something that had been shifting quietly for a long time, finally deciding where it belonged. I typed, of course, sent it, set the phone down. For a few minutes, I did nothing, just sat there, aware of how familiar this moment was, the agreement, the follow through, the quiet continuation of a role I had never formally agreed to but had never refused either. Then I opened my laptop. The actions themselves were simple, routine even. The kind of things you do once a month without thinking. Only this time I was thinking. I canceled the scheduled payment, not dramatically, not with hesitation, just a few clicks, a confirmation prompt, and then it was done. The credit card I had put in my sister's name years ago, just in case. She had said back then, I closed that too. There was a brief pause on the screen, a reminder of what that account had covered over time. Groceries, utilities, things that added up without ever being discussed. I didn't review it for long. There was one last thing. I opened my phone again and recorded a voice note. I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse. Spend time with your real support system. I listened to it once. My voice sounded steady, not cold, not emotional, just finished. I sent it to my sister. Then I put the phone face down and went back to what I had been doing before any of this started. The first call came earlier than I expected. Then another. By the time I checked, there were more than a dozen notifications stacked on top of each other. Missed calls, messages, the tone shifting with each one, confusion, then urgency, then something closer to panic. I didn't open them right away. When I finally did, the words were exactly what you would expect. Questions that weren't really questions. Requests that assumed a temporary mistake. Did something happen? The payment didn't go through. Call me. Please respond. There was no mention of Christmas, no mention of the photos. I set the phone down again. The silence on my side wasn't strategic. It just felt like the only honest response left. Anything else would have pulled me back into explaining something I hadn't created. Later, I listened to the voice note I had sent just once more. Not to check it, just to hear it in the same way they would have. It didn't sound harsh, but it didn't leave much room either. By morning, the messages had multiplied. The language had softened again, less demanding, more careful. My mother's name appeared in a few of them now, placed gently into sentences like a reminder of weight I was supposed to feel. I felt it, just not in the same way anymore. There wasn't a sense of victory in any of this. No satisfaction in the missed calls or the sudden urgency. If anything, it made something clearer than before. How quickly absence becomes visible when it interrupts something expected. I didn't respond that day or the next. Life didn't change dramatically on my end. The same routines, the same quiet spaces. But there was a difference in how those spaces felt, less occupied by something unspoken. I thought about Christmas again briefly. Not the photos themselves, but the version of events I had been given. How easily I had accepted it. How long I had been accepting similar things without noticing the pattern. There wasn't a clean resolution waiting at the end of that thought, just an understanding. At some point, the calls slowed down. The messages became less frequent, more measured, not resolved, just adjusted to a new reality that none of us had defined out loud. I didn't block anyone. I didn't disappear. I just stopped filling a role that had never been named directly. And in that absence, something else settled into place, not closure, but alignment.